Ooh, I love this topic. Procrastination. You all know it's something that I hold near and dear to my heart because I am a recovering procrastinator and talk about how it's self-sabotage behavior. But today I welcome an expert on the topic and we're going to dive in right now. So welcome, Larisa Makuch.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. This is so exciting. I feel like we're sisters from another mother. So,
Yes, we were just chatting before I hit record, and we have so much in common,
yeah.
including dance,
Mhm.
which I love. So, Larissa, tell us a bit about your story and how you've come to kind of navigate your path towards speaking about procrastination, including writing a book on the topic.
Okay, beautiful. So, uh, I'm going to zoom way back, but I'm not going to give you a 20-minute spiel. But I'm going to zoom back about 20 years or so ago, 25. Time flies. And I was working in the financial services industry. It was my very first career. And I loved learning about money. I loved sharing about money. I loved doing what I did, but I didn't know how to talk to people, which is kind of a problem when you work in a sales position. And so I started learning about personal growth and development. And over the years, I realized that I had a whole lot to learn. And that's essentially where my personal growth and development journey began, because I had a lot of technical skills. I could always get the check marks at school. I could always do well on exams. But then when it came to real life stuff, people were like, Larissa, you're the least practical person in the world. Like, just go with the flow, have a conversation. I'm like, can I take notes on that? Can I be prepared? Like that was my mindset back then. And so very studious, but had a lot to learn. And I remember back in the day sitting in these rooms and I was like, wow, these company leaders, they're up there talking and inspiring people. I want to do more of that. And even when my branch manager, she taught me about like policies and investments and things like that. But my most exciting conversations with her were about things she read in a book. And I was like, wow, I want to motivate people just like she does. And just some of the way she motivated our company and our branch was really beautiful. Like she'd have contests and she knew how to get people to take action. And it was beyond just the act. There was something special and I didn't understand it, but I'd seen it over the years. I went to many, many seminars and I remember those moments where I sat there and said, wow, I want to do that. But I would dismiss it because I was like so far away from that. I had moments where I got to speak in front of people locally and that was fine, but it wasn't at that level where I felt I was really making an impact. And so flash forward many years, I kept going to seminars. I kept working with coaches just because it helped me. It was great. It was part of what I'd become and who I'd become. I'd worked in several different businesses and just applied everything I learned along the way. And I had a moment where I had recently joined the Proctor Gallagher Institute, which is working with Bob Proctor as a consultant. And he was one of the world's leading authorities in prosperity thinking and growth. This is like a living legend I'd heard about over 20 years ago in financial services, but now he's in the Greater Toronto area where I live and he's still alive and he's making an impact. And I'm like, okay, something in me says I have to work with him. And I was at lunch with a colleague and she said a line: procrastination is suicide of your dreams on the installment plan. You say no to this opportunity and that opportunity and this opportunity and that opportunity, you're going to just keep saying no. Like it's never going to end. And little by little, your dream is going to disappear. And prior to that, I'd had moments of procrastination. I think we all do. We all have moments of procrastination, but I'd never realized procrastination was a really like the important things in life. It was never a theme in my life. And that moment, I almost thought I was going to fall off my chair because it was so profound because it's true. Those things where I said, oh, I'd love to do that. And then just ignored it. It didn't even clue in. And I think so often we have moments like that where deep down we actually want it, but we don't think we're deserving of it.
Mm.
And I think when we start plugging into those moments and saying, maybe I'm choosing not to pursue it now, but let me not just dismiss this. Maybe there's something more to it. And so that's essentially where the theme of procrastination and procrastinating your life away came into play, right? Stop procrastinating your life away, because I don't ever want women or people to feel like they just have to put the important things off
Mhm.
for the sake of now.
Well said. And thank you for sharing. Show us that book again.
Okay. It's pink.
Yes.
It's pink. It made me very happy.
Yes, yes. Stop procrastinating your life away. Absolutely. So insightful because it's true. The things that we put off, we don't realize what impact they can have on us. And it's not maybe a deliberate, I'm not going to do it. I think that's a good point. It's like, oh, I have a dream, but then you don't really follow up on it or you don't really think about it. It's an innocent oversight. So we
Yeah.
think it's not a deliberate, like, "Ah, I can't do it." And that's where we need to be careful because
Yeah.
that's where we're not aware of it. We're not conscious of it. So let's talk a
Mhm.
little bit more about that awareness piece and how we can start to tune into where we are procrastinating in our life.
Well, and I think when it comes to procrastination, I feel like so often there's this heaviness, even with the word, there's a heaviness of procrastination. There's almost a shame or a sense of pride. Like I actually had a client when she's like, I'm the princess of procrastination. And she put on a crown on her collar once. And I'm like, take that off now, please. I appreciate the effort, appreciate the humor, but you are reinforcing that every time you say it. And she was saying it in a joking way. However, it was like when you go to the gym and you run the reps, you do the bicep curls, you do the squats, you build muscle. Well, every time she said that as a joke, she built that muscle. And I think so often, I love how you said, I've never thought of it as an innocent oversight, but it's
Mhm.
those innocent oversights. It's those moments where we make the joke and say, oh, it's okay. And it's actually not okay. It doesn't have to be heavy, but it's when we make those jokes and just try to brush it off and don't
Mhm.
realize what's happening that it can be scary. And I think so often these things build and we don't even realize it because we're literally
Mhm.
putting our dreams and our lives on hold. So there's that one extreme where we're like, oh, it's okay, I'm just a procrastinator, and we kind of wear it as a badge of honor, but we really don't want to, but we're doing it because we don't want to feel bad. And we play these mind games with ourselves and with others because others aren't going to call us on it because they don't want to make us feel bad because we're all women and we want to feel good together. And then there's this other like shame where you're just you go into this darkness, and it's the other polar opposite. I find a lot of people step into that and they don't want people to know they're a procrastinator, so they try and then they burn themselves out and they get exhausted along the way, and they forget who they are and why they're even doing what they're doing in the first place. But they want to be dependable, they want to do everything right. Yeah, they might be procrastinating on they might not be procrastinating on the little stuff, but they're procrastinating on the big stuff, like their life, the important
Absolutely.
things, their
Yeah.
health.
Yeah.
So when you're in the middle and you're like, okay, I think there's three aspects to procrastination that I like to talk about. First is procrastination when you accept it as a behavior and you're like, okay, I'm doing the behavior of procrastination with this right now. Sometimes it can actually serve you, right? There's something legitimate that you aren't ready to do. And you're putting it off and putting it off, but the universe doesn't want you to do it today.
Mhm.
I'm sure you've encountered a few of those things
Mhm.
where
Absolutely.
where you did it 3 months later, 6 months later, and it was divine timing. It was perfect timing.
Mhm.
And then there's the identity where you hold that identity as a procrastinator, but that's like really deeply rooted. And then we have the habit of procrastination where we're just in the habit of putting something off, putting something off, putting something off. And when
Okay.
we really look at which one of those is prevalent to us, we have an entry point to be able to deal with it.
Very interesting.
Mhm.
Interesting perspective on the three different ways that we could procrastinate. For
Mhm.
myself, I was caught in the procrastination trap when I was launching my business. And I realized it was self-sabotage because I was holding back on the launch, thinking I needed to have everything perfect and everything lined up. And then I learned that that was a form of procrastination, which we don't
Yeah.
think because we're still working towards the goal. We're still doing some things. We're feeling productive. We're feeling like as long as I'm planning and I'm organizing and I'm doing all the things, I'm still doing something towards that dream, but I wasn't actually launching. I was
Yeah.
holding back. And that definitely comes back to the more emotional side of like, oh my goodness, what are they going to say? Am I deserving of this? And all of those emotions that come behind that lead us to that procrastination without even realizing. So I was in the innocent oversight trap that
Yeah.
definitely someone helped me to snap out of and like just do it. And once you do it, then you'll be able to move forward. But when you keep yourself stuck in that trap, I mean, you can be planning for a year, 2 years, 3 years. And then, like you said, Larissa, life passes you by.
10 years, 20 years. I think there's a lot of people that just, like you said, by default, they stay in planning mode, or they're never ready. They're never ready. They're never ready. Even the book, right?
Yeah.
Ironically, the title of my book, Stop Procrastinating Your Life Away. I'd always wanted to write a book. I didn't think it was actually the right time to write a book when I started writing the book. And then ironically, it was called Stop Procrastinating Your Life Away. And like writing a book was one of the things on my list. I didn't think it was top of the list yet, but then opportunity came and I just did it. I was thrown into it. And I'm grateful I did it, but I wanted a different book, right? So I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So instead of regretting that I didn't write that other book as well, I started writing the other book. I don't have to publish it. I don't have to put it out there yet. But as spirit speaks, I take a little bit of action towards it and I know it's going to happen, but I finished something. I've got this book. I've got my business. I've got other things just like you do. And you've got to bite the bullet and put it out there in the world or nobody's going to know. You can't help and make a difference.
Exactly. So you mentioned taking action, but also something I feel is even more important is finishing something.
Yeah.
Right? Do you feel like that is the way that we could start to overcome our procrastination habits?
Well, so we can be great starters, we can be great changers, and we can be great finishers. And some people are great at finishing things, but they don't even start. Other people can start and finish, but they may not know how to change course. Like they might be starting and they might be working, but the plan might not be effective, right? The goal might be good, but the plan might not be effective and they may not know how to change, or they may be changing too many times, and no change or too much change can also be a form of procrastination. And then finishing is also, and so I think there's different layers of this. So I absolutely, finishing is great, but if you already know how to finish and you're just not getting started, you've got to call yourself on that too.
Ooh, I love this perspective. Let's talk about this a little more, please. So, can you give us some examples of those three different points and how we can get lost within them?
Okay. I have a client and she's a manager in a really, really busy company. She's got lots of people she's responsible for. And from day one, she's always been like busy, 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 always talking about time, got to be more organized, got to do this, lots of stress. Like, can you hear how fast I'm talking? You're going, Larisa, stop. Okay. That was her for the first couple of years. And now she takes time for herself. She's got herself more neutralized. And there was one thing that she decided to change in her team. And they're still busy, but they make a different level of progress because her and her team decided to finish things. They're like, we work on one thing at a time and we finish it. We work on one thing at a time and we finish it. We work on one thing at a time and we finish it. And because they work on one thing at a time as a team and they finish it, all of a sudden they have, I'm not going to say more time, but they use their time more wisely. And they get so much more done. And I haven't had any crisis calls going, I have a deadline and I'm up for 3 days. And right. And I think so often we miss the simplicity of it. And so in that case, they had so many balls in the air and they weren't finishing when she realized, and she just like, I think you have to zoom back, right? When we're in it, we see everything like this and it's messy. But when we zoom back, we can really look at things from an outside perspective. It's almost like looking at it from the God's eye view. You can see everything down there and it's not as emotionally intimidating. I think when you're in your own life, it's emotional, but when you zoom out, you can step away from the emotion and be more reasonable. And so that was what she did. I have another client and she actually just mentioned on one of our calls a few weeks ago or a couple of weeks ago. And she's like, these people mention they have trouble finishing. I have trouble starting. She's like, I think about it, but I just don't do it. I think that that's a good idea. I don't do it. I think about it. I even write it in my book and I just don't do it. And so we got her to start with one commitment. And I think when you're starting, sometimes you may think there's so many good ideas out there, you don't know where to start, or the ideas are so big. So it's almost like if you could break it down to the ridiculous. For her, once she got going, she could keep going. So for her one tiny action is, I'm going to read for 10 minutes in the morning before I get out of bed. And it's a simple action, but since she started doing that, it had a natural trickle effect for her with so many other things because she started with that one good habit and it naturally led to many more. And I think when you notice that, when you're like, I'm writing this down and I mean to, but I just don't do it. I make promises and I'm not keeping them, but I'm not even getting to keeping them. Like when the to-do lists pile up, when the ideas are there, but but no action is happening, you kind of stay in inaction. So I think that those are the two extremes that people often get stuck in.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And what about too much change or too little change? I'm curious to hear how that impacts procrastination as well.
Yeah, well, when you have, let's say you have a plan, and I don't know about you, but I've never had a plan fully work out start to finish the way it was designed.
True. Yeah.
Especially in business. Okay.
Yes.
Like we can get the result, we can get a lot of good things happening, but no plan ever works out flawlessly without some kind of course correction. It's just,
Mhm.
especially a business plan. Sometimes we get so rigid in having to follow the plan. I think when you don't use data, let's say in business, if let's say you have a plan to market a new initiative and you're doing the plan, you're doing the plan, you're doing the plan, but you're not actually tracking data and you're not using that data to make some decisions to see if the plan that you have is actually working, that's not a very effective strategy. And so this is, I think, one of the things in terms of having like advisors or accountability coaches or consultants that it's brilliant, because when you have other people or business coaches to work with, they can see things outside of you that you can't see in yourself. They can see these things. It's hard to see it in yourself unless you practice. And I think this is one of the things that we actively do. And you're a student of personal growth, so you think about these things, but 90% of people don't. 99% of people just don't take the time, not because they don't want to, they just haven't thought about doing it.
Right.
So that's one thing where you're like doing the things, you're doing the things, you're doing the things, and you've got to do enough of the things to get it to work. But sometimes you are doing enough of the things and you're just not seeing where they're not working because you're trying to stick to the plan.
That makes so much sense. Being so
Yeah.
rigid and following what you think it needs to be and not allowing yourself to just be open and see what's working and what needs to
Yeah.
be changed, what needs to be adapted. How can I make this better? So true. So true.
Yeah.
And see, I never even thought that was procrastination.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
when you start really thinking about it, you're like, oh yes, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It shows up in so many forms, but I think it's sneaky because we don't see it ourselves very easily. And then the flip side, the too much change is, well, you try something and it doesn't work, so let's change it. You try something and it doesn't work, so let's change it. You try something, let's work, so let's change it. Well, you might be trying so many things that there isn't enough time for the universe to give it a sticking effect and for it to actually work. Like, okay, back to dance. I was a learning through the arts instructor where we got to teach curriculum through dance to little kids in school. Really fun, about 15, 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago, many years ago, but it was cool. We did a science lesson where we were looking at the life cycle of seeds. And so the seeds get planted into the ground. They have to get watered. You have to have good, nutritious soil. You need sunlight. And then all of a sudden these seeds, they sprout, and then a little tiny seed pokes out of the ground. But until you see the seed, you've got to keep watering it and see nothing, watering it and see nothing, watering it and see nothing. And all of a sudden, when the seed comes out, it grows and grows and grows. And then these beautiful flowers or leaves on a tree, like there's movement, there's life, there's vibrance at the top. At the end, there's this incubation period. Things need time to grow. And we often forget that when you're in too much change mode, have you actually given it enough time? Have you done enough reps? If you're new to business and you've made 3 calls and you got rejected, doesn't mean it's not working. Go make 100 or 300 or 1,000 calls and then see if it's not working. Like, you need enough repetition and staying power to see things through. If you eat one salad and you're on a weight loss journey and you go on one walk, that's not enough to see a result. You need to do these things over and over and over again. And you might see a little result and you're like, yay, but then you plateau. But you've got to keep elevating and growing and changing and doing things when you don't see the results to get the prize at the end.
Great analogies. That also leads me to really reflect on the importance of having faith and trust in the process.
Yeah.
And really not giving up. And just because we're not seeing results after a day or in the timing that we wanted, let's talk about it that way. Going back to that plan, right? We had a plan, and let's say, okay, we're going to launch 2 weeks leading up to the launch. And by the end of week 2, I'm going to have 100 people in my program. And when that doesn't happen, don't give up, because maybe it was just not the right timing. Maybe you need to put yourself out there more. Maybe you need to try a different approach. And that's when you're saying, Larisa, look at the data, look what's working, look what could be adapted, what has room for improvement and growth. Definitely inspiring, because I think we all fall into, and I'll use the word again, trap every so often, just to say like, okay, how are we not helping ourselves grow grow. And I think the healthy eating or walking analogy is also excellent because it's like, okay, I had one salad. Where are my abs?
Yeah.
Right? Like it doesn't work like that. Why can't I see my abs? I had a salad. Coming back to the dance that we have in common, I do see this a lot with dancers as well, procrastinating on putting yourself out there and going after what you want. And thinking that you only fit into this one box because that's what you've trained in. And we were speaking earlier, Larissa, we have something in common, even more than just dance, but the new venture of trying a new style. And after so long of being in the dance industry, we put ourselves out there and we said, let's try something new.
And we sucked.
And we
And we
sucked
sucked. We sucked
so
so
bad.
bad.
But that's okay
Yeah.
because we didn't let ourselves get into that procrastination trap of maybe one day, or like I really want to try this, but like I'm too old, I'm too this, I'm too that, right? All of these things that come up, what I like to call limiting beliefs, those mindset blocks. We just went for it. We kept going. How long did you stay in it, Larissa? How long?
So I actually started an aerial silks class. So it's not dance, but it's movement. And I've never had problems with movement. Sometimes I'm a little uncoordinated when it's new, but I catch on pretty quick. And so this aerial silks, you need upper body strength. You're basically doing chin-ups on a slippery silk and acrobatics. And it was the most humbling experience. I'm actually still doing the classes. And
Amazing.
it was beautiful because it had been such a long time since I probably maybe even the first time in my life I'd ever experienced this level of I'm gonna just say suckedness. I don't know, like where I didn't have the skills, I didn't have the tools, I had the intellectual capacity, but my body wasn't doing what I thought I wanted it to do and what I saw other people doing. Like it just I didn't have that mind body connection. I'm like, okay, hips above my head, upside. No, there's my butt's pretty heavy. So there was a lot of humbling moments, but I remember I caught myself so many times and I'm like, I suck at this. Why can't I do this? My butt's too heavy to lift up. And I would say these things. And I'm like, and one day I'm just like, Larissa, shush it. Like, what if you imagine your hips are just a little lighter than they were the last time you lifted them? And then all of a sudden it wasn't as hard. And I started practicing my little tiny self-talk, just like I do to my clients, right? I know how to do it in the areas that I'm used to doing it, but I wasn't used to doing it in the physical arena because it had never been a problem. And so I had to go back to basics, back to square one, doing the things that I practice on my morning success calls every day for business, for mindset with my little exercise class. And it was so powerful because when I did talk well to myself, all of a sudden it was better.
Oh yeah,
And
for
it
sure.
felt better. And then I eventually climbed and I got stronger and I could start doing things. But I think it takes time. Like you have to go back to basics. And just because you can do it over here doesn't mean you can do it over here as easily. And so humbling experience. How did yours turn out?
So mine was a heels class. So it was dancing. Like you, Larissa, I was like, oh, well, I'm a dancer. So yeah, I'm going to be good at this because I'm a good dancer and things come easily to me. So yeah, let's go. And that first class, I wanted to run out because it was so different. You're putting on a 4-inch heel. Now your whole body has to balance and has to move in a certain way with those heels on. And it was a way of moving that I was not used to. And so I started in January. So now we're coming up on almost a year. I did not give up. I did not run out of that first class. I continued and I went back the following week and I kept signing up for the classes because I told myself it's okay that you feel this way. Allow yourself to learn something new. Allow yourself to suck because I did really bad. But don't have expectations. Just because you're good at one thing doesn't mean you can't be good at something else, or doesn't mean you need to work a little bit harder to get to that level of where you want to be. Now, it's not my intention to become a heels dancer or professional or teacher. I just want to do this for me and prove to myself that I could still learn, that I could still do the hard things, that I could still show up every week and build that habit of just being consistent and working hard and getting my body to do something that it wasn't used to. And that accomplishment of just showing up, not even like what I look like, but just showing up, that in itself gave me the confidence to be like, yeah, I could do anything. I could do anything I want.
It reminds us of the simplicity, right? I keep saying like the basics are the basics are the basics in anything you do.
Mhm.
And sometimes when we're so used to practicing the basics. We just assume everyone should do them. Everyone should know them. I live in a slightly small, big bubble. A lot of people that are in my world, they study, they practice personal growth. They've cracked a few self-help books. They go to seminars, and there's a common language. But when we do step out of our comfort zone, just like you said, and give ourselves permission to go to new places and be vulnerable, that is massive, because
Oh, yeah.
it really does remind, like for me, I know it helps me connect to clients that come into our world, because it reminds me, it's like, not everyone is born with a self-help book in their hand. Not everyone has immersed
Absolutely.
themselves like this. And I know that as they do, I know that as they give themselves permission, they will feel so much more confident, because it works for us too, right? This is the game.
Absolutely. And what you and I both did is we worked on our mindset first, right? We had to change the way we thought about ourselves in that process. And we had to quit the negative talk, because yes, trust me, me too, there was negative talk of like, why do I feel this way? Why do I look this way? Why is what is in my head not matching what I see through the video? Like, where's that disconnect? So I had to let go of all that negative self-talk and switch that mindset to just be one of growth, of vulnerability, of curiosity. Let's just explore. Let's just have fun. Let's remove all the pressure. Because dance, I don't know about you, Larissa, but dance for me at one point, it came with a lot of pressure because there were expectations, not necessarily that others put on me, but what I put on myself. Once you reach a certain level, once you represent something in particular, especially a style, for me, it came with expectations of like, okay, I need to deliver. I need to be on that level to show everybody, okay, she's good, or prove to myself and to others that I was worthy of being there. That's a lot of pressure. And I put that same pressure into this new dance class when I'm just trying to learn something new. So it's perspective, it's shifting, it's reframing, it's all of that to leave yourself, to help yourself get into a more open state. And from there, you could just have fun. And from there, you'll see the progress. And then you start applying those little steps, like you're saying, Larissa, that little step of like, okay, show up a little bit better each time, a little progress each time, and doing that consistently.
Better and better and better every day.
Every day.
One
Yes.
day at a time.
One day at a time. Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell us, Larissa, how do you work with your clients, and how can we reach out to you if we're interested in learning more about procrastination?
Yeah. So I have a life and business incubator, the Abundance Accelerator program, where we keep an eye on our personal lives and ourselves, keeping ourselves in integrity, and also our vocation and business and our calling in the world, so we can truly step out and shine. And so this is my baby. This is something that's near and dear to my heart, because I really, truly do believe women can and should be extremely empowered to live their best lives, not through a state of pressure, but because they're actually being authentic, because they have integrity with themselves. They keep the promises they make with themselves and with others, and they're not just playing small. They're truly stepping out and shining. So living their best lives. And so if someone is interested in learning more about me, then I'll give you a link to, I mean, if you guys want to book a call, but probably grab the Stop Procrastinating book. It's on Amazon, but if you want a free downloadable copy, I can get you a link at stopprocrastinatingbook.com. And you can access this. It's got great bonus resources, talks about procrastination, talks about the power of routine and habit, and how you can actually take these little tiny things you're doing every day and maximize and optimize them, how to overcome limiting beliefs. It's a really, really specific process I do with clients that you can start overcoming limiting beliefs in a predictable way to counter that negative self-talk and really, truly make decisions that are empowering. So packed full of a lot of stuff at Stop Procrastinating Book. And from there, there's ways to find me.
Absolutely. And I'll definitely
Yeah,
have all your links in the show notes for easy access. Thank you so much. The time has flown by. This
absolutely.
topic is always something that I love to discuss. So thank you for being here, for sharing your expertise, your insights. Definitely, I have a lot to reflect on. I think there's a lot of good stuff here that we can even take right now and see. Number one, awareness. Where am I procrastinating? And then how do I need to start moving forward? And then everyone reach out to Larissa to help you get there faster and further. Thank you, Larissa.
Thanks for having me.